Welcome back. In this video, I want to discuss with you what I call controllers. Now, the idea of a controller comes from back in the day when I used to work with MVC style patterns. And if you're not familiar with those kind of styles, it stands for model, view, and controller. But the basic concept idea that you take away from it is a separation of your visual part of whatever you're doing. That's normally called like the view, and then you want to separate out kind of like the business logic into something else, which can sometimes, depending on the framework, be called the model, or sometimes it can be called the controller. I always think about it as the controller. I'm controlling the view, so whatever. I call them controllers. And what a controller is here, it's kind of the same concept of what a reducer is, but it's a lot more flexible in how we can actually get things done. And we accomplish this by using a class rather than a function reducer, right? So this is just another way to do things, and I think it works really well. Let's start off at the top right. We have our mega state, just like we did in our previous iterations that we had, right? We have a function of new mega state, which we can call to create our default new state. And then down here we have a class, and it's just called counter controller. Pretty common for me in terms of convention. It'll just be whatever the parent name of the component is, and then controller right after it. Okay, and we're going to see right at the top, we have a couple of properties defined on this class, right? So we have our state, which is type mega state, and we assign it the value of new mega state on when we create this new class, right? And then here we have a set state function, which is of type dispatch, and set state action, and of mega state, or it is undefined. And then you're going to see that we have this method here called use controller. This is typically how I write it, so that it looks like a hook and it kind of blends into the rest of the React kind of ecosystem here. Anytime you have a hook, it starts with the lowercase word use, and then something comes after it. Now, this isn't a true quote-unquote hook. We'll talk more about hooks later, but it's trying to use that same kind of vernacular that you would see here in React. And then, as we have seen here in our counter, for example, right, when we called use state right here inside of this function, instead we call our use state inside of our controller class object here, and then it assigns the value of the state and of our set state function here as well. And then from here, we can pretty much kind of do the same thing that we did here, and I'm just going to steal these essentially, so that I don't have to retype this, and then we'll just fit it into our controller here, right? So this is not the correct way to write a function here, so we just have to make some slight edits. We turn this into an arrow function like this, and this dot set state. And then it'll be this dot state, and then this dot state. Okay, so it's giving me a little bit of guff here because this can potentially be undefined, and we haven't actually checked if it's undefined. Typically, I would probably just change this in my TS config, I think. We'll just work around this for the time being, but if this dot set state is one way we can get around this. Because if we check if the set state actually exists, then we can actually call it. And we're going to have to do the same thing here. And then we're just going to change these here. And we need to refactor this just slightly like so. And there we go. This is basically how you would accomplish the same thing, but with a controller. And now, in order to make this actually work, we're going to come into our component here. I'm just going to start deleting some stuff out of here that we don't need. Basically like this. And then we'll create our new counter controller right here, like so. And then inside of our function, we just need to call the control.use controller like this. And this will handle setting and updating our state. And then from here, what I'm going to do is like this. This will just make things slightly easier. And then last but not least, we need to hook up our function calls to our controller. And then so it'll be controller.onClick here. And then this will be controller.onClick second. So if we go to onClick second, here it is here. And then last but not least here, we need to just I'm gonna rename this. Yeah, I just realized that we've kind of put ourselves in a little bit of a situation here, because typically this isn't how I would, let's change this to counter with controller, like so. This will resolve, and then I'm just gonna copy this name here. I'm just gonna paste it right here, and it'll automatically do the import for me. And okay, that should be pretty good. And then just to make sure that we're actually using our controller, I'm just going to put like an alert here. OnClick controller. So we will see an alert message pop up when we look at this. And it says OnClick controller, so we're actually calling the controller here, right? And it increases. And here we're going to press the second one as well. And we can see that these both increase. As you can see, I really like working with this particular style. It may seem like when we look at this really small example, compared to the reducer, you might think maybe it's more complex, or maybe that we wrote more code overall. And maybe for this particular example, that might be true. But when you get into writing bigger, more complex components, I guarantee you this way is tremendously easier, and we're going to be using it probably more to write more components coming up here in the future. So you'll see this more in action and understand this probably even better. But this is the basics on how to use a controller, and let's just keep moving on. See you in the next video.